and we are here with the former CEO of Starbucks, Howard Behar. Hello, Howard. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to start with the main point, that it's not about the coffee, right?
Right. It's true. It's not about the coffee. It's about the people.
Yes, it is. I'd like to rewind at your life before Starbucks. I know you were in retail.
Right.
And you did a special MBA. So I would like you to tell us about your MBA.
Well, my MBA was on the street growing up, working. I had a father that had a small grocery store in a neighborhood, and I learned a lot from him. I learned what service really meant, that it wasn't about just giving somebody something, but it was about truly caring about your customers as human beings first. And those lessons stayed with me my whole life. And then I had opportunities along the way in family businesses and in other businesses. And I grew up learning that at the end of the day, we're all put on this earth to do one thing, and that's to serve another human being. And it just happened that I liked doing that. And I did it in the context of the industry that I was in, which is retail. And I still like it.
And I understand that in that experience, you were in an agency, a state agency that that went bankrupt?
No, it wasn't an agency that went bankrupt. It was a company that got in trouble, and we had to sell it because we were in trouble. But we didn't go bankrupt, but close, very close. And
do you think that failure could in a way translate to the success of Starbucks?
Yeah, I think, we're as human beings, we're made up of all our experiences in life. And in order to have a fulfilling life, we talk a lot about wanting to have a happy life, but happiness is kind of fleeting. It's emotions where you're feeling good. But a fulfilling life is about happy times, about sad times, about failure, about challenging times, and about good times and learning lessons in life. And so all the things that we go through in our lives go to make us a whole person. And that's the same with having failure, whether it's in business, whether it's in school, it doesn't make any difference. Failure is a good lesson.
So I would like to know, how did you think about the phrase, it's not about the coffee, it's about the people?
Yeah. Well, when I first came to Starbucks, it fit me like a glove. It was a place that, I love coffee, first of all. I was an avid coffee drinker before I went to Starbucks. But one of the things when I got there, I realized that the coffee was important, but the most important thing was the people. And I was trying to figure out how I could explain that to the people in the company. And I came up with this expression that basically said, we're not in the coffee business serving people, but we're in the people business serving coffee. So when I came up with the title for the book, It's Not About the Coffee, that was really taking that little phrase, that we're here to serve people, right, and trying to make it have sense. And really, it is not about the coffee. The coffee has to be good. The products that we sell need to be acceptable for the people that we're serving. But at the end of the day, really, everything we do in life is about people. Like I said, we're all here to serve people.
And there you mean people behind the coffee and also the consumers, right?
Yeah, everybody. It's coffee by itself. Coffee grows on a tree. Somebody had to identify that, hey, this could be good, and then somebody had to make something out of it, and then somebody, as economies grew and coffee was shipped all over the world, somebody had to do that, and then somebody had to serve it, and somebody had to sell it. And so it's people that brought coffee alive. God made coffee, nature made coffee, but it was human beings that took it and made it into something else.
And what does Starbucks make coffee into?
I always thought that Starbucks was not about filling bellies, not about filling stomachs, but we were about filling souls. And what I mean by that is that coffee has a unique place in our cultures, in the Peruvian culture and the in the United States culture and in many cultures throughout the world. And, you know, we have a cup of coffee or even a cup of tea. It's warm and it's soothing and it's comforting. We drink coffee and having a conversation with another human being. We might drink coffee reading a newspaper or reading a book. And so what I mean by filling our souls, it's kind of, I always think of coffee as kind of the grease of life, right? It makes things work. And so it's about that. It's about the pleasure that goes with coffee. And it certainly has a little caffeine in it, so it gives us a little kick too.
Yeah. Okay. In your book, you talk about the principles you learn, and one of them is that you have to take interest in people you work with, right?
Right.
But I was wondering, how do you do that in a company that is so big, right? How can you take interest in everyone? How can you get to know everyone?
Yeah, well, you know, when I was working at Starbucks, it had over 100,000 people that worked at Starbucks. Was it possible for me to know every individual by individual? No. But that didn't relieve me of the responsibility to making sure that the organization cared about each individual. I used to send birthday cards to everybody that worked in the company and company anniversary cards to everybody that worked in the company. I didn't know every individual, but I hand-signed every one of them, and if I knew the people, I'd write a special note. And I knew many people, but I couldn't possibly know everybody. But what those cards were about, they were meant to show that I cared, that I was willing to take the time. Now, eventually, I could not do that by myself. So other people had to do it with me. And so each person, you know, hopefully got a card from maybe the person that they reported to. And so it's about creating an attitude, about creating an idea that goes through the whole company. People caring about people, serving people. And when that happens, it takes the whole company, the whole organization with you. It's like raising children. And not that the people that worked at Starbucks were my children. They were not my point. But you set in motion certain values in a family. And that's the responsibility of leadership in organizations, is to set in motion certain values. And the thing that I valued most in the organization were the people working in the organization.
And how do you choose the people that work with you or that work in Starbucks, even if it's not directly with you?
Yeah. Well, you know, you have to identify, first of all, who are the kind of people that fit your organization. A culture like Starbucks really said that people that come to work for Starbucks had to value other people, had to value relationships more than they valued their own needs. And didn't mean they didn't have their own needs, they do. But they had to do that. And so there's an old saying that like attracts like. And what that means is similar people attract similar people. And that's what really happens as a company grows. The people that work in Starbucks say to their friends, hey, you should come work too in Starbucks because you know, you value the same things that I value. And that goes to that whole idea, is that companies need to have explicit values of what matters to them. And those need to be written down. And we need to live our lives according to those values. And so that's how it works. I mean, you interview people, you know, and you hire people. Sometimes you make mistakes, and sometimes people make mistakes. But for the most part, we've been very good at making sure that the people that worked at Starbucks cared about other people.
And you would say that people working in Starbucks here in Latin America share the same values that are people working in Starbucks than maybe in Asia?
Yeah, actually, I find it's true. You know, I'm 70 years old, and one of the best lessons that I have learned in my life, primarily, I always had confidence in this, but I wasn't sure because I had never led a company that did business all over the world. But what I found was that pretty much we're all the same. That the differences that we have cultural differences, we certainly have food differences, we have language differences, we might have religious differences, and we may have different beliefs about things. But down underneath all the surface things, people want to love and be loved. People want to be treated with respect and dignity. People want to grow as human beings. They want to learn. And they want more for their families and themselves. They want to be able to do something for their children. And no matter where you go, it's the same. It's the same. So when you, there are some things that are universal. No matter how much we try to think that they're different, they're not. And what gets, I think, our world in trouble are the things that we think are really different. And they become kind of tribal things, and it's what causes wars. It's not what's underneath, right? And so the whole idea of that, are the people that work in China the same as the people that work at Starbucks in Seattle? No, they have differences. But underneath there are these core things that they value human beings, and they value being of service to other human beings. And that's the same in Peru. This is my first trip to Peru. And, you know, I've been here 4 days, so what do I know? Nothing. But what I do know, right, by how I've been treated, with respect, with dignity, with caring, that those things are universal. It doesn't make any difference where you go.
Have you been to a Starbucks here?
I have. Yes, I have. And I walk in the store, and nobody knows. I've been retired for a long time, so it doesn't make I'm just a customer. And I go get my triple tall Americano.
That's your favorite?
My favorite every morning. I start with that. And then I order something that we don't have in America, which I really like, which is a pan con queso. Is that right?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Or pan de queso with a little cheese and a little thing. I guess it's Brazilian. But
yeah, I think it's Brazilian.
Yeah, but it's very good. I liked it. I want to take that idea back and tell the people at Starbucks, hey, this is good. But the service was wonderful. And if I didn't know where I was and I couldn't hear Spanish being spoken, you could be anywhere in the world.
You're
right?
still in Starbucks.
Still in Starbucks. It's an egalitarian place. You can go into Starbucks, not even buy a cup of coffee, sit and have a conversation with another human being, and an hour later leave. Nobody will say a word to you. It's a place. And whether you are rich, whether you're poor, whether you're educated, whether you're uneducated, you can do that.
Whether you drink coffee or not.
Whether you drink coffee or not.
That's true. When I travel, there's always a time for me when I need comforting, and Starbucks is that.
Right.
Because I always know how it's going to be.
Right.
I know I'm going to be comfortable, I'm going to drink what I like to drink.
Yeah.
I'm going to just talk about things, I'm going to relax a little bit.
Right.
Even, no matter where I am.
Yeah. Yeah, and even if you don't want a cup of coffee, you can go sit, and it'll make you feel good.
I like tea.
Tea, okay,
But
good.
the tea is great.
Good.
Chai tea.
Chai tea,
Yeah. So, and rewinding a little bit, before when you just started, Starbucks was only in the US.
Yes.
Then you opened the first one in Tokyo.
Yes.
Right? So before you knew all the things you know now, what were you thinking taking this idea that work in the US to Japan with a different culture, different rules? How was the start of this?
Well, I wanted to do the work first. I thought, I was 50 years old when we started the international business, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to take Starbucks outside of North America? And I thought that we could use our coffee to build bridges among people, right? That Starbucks, I know this sounds crazy, but Starbucks had an opportunity to build something where people of all cultures, right, could come together no matter where. And so that was my goal. At that point in time, we had opened 400 stores. It was fun to open stores, but after you open 400 stores, it's just opening another store. So I wanted to focus on a greater purpose. And the team assembled at Starbucks, I said, we're going to use Starbucks coffee to build bridges among people. And so we chose Japan for a couple of reasons. Primarily, Seattle is a Pacific Rim city, right? Just like Lima is on the Pacific. We're a Pacific Rim city. So we could get our coffee to Japan in 7 days on the ship. So it was fairly easy to do that. The second thing is Japan was a large coffee consuming country. People drink coffee in Japan. And I thought that Asia was going to be the best place for Starbucks to start because there was more acceptance of things coming out of the United States than there was in Europe at the time. And so, you know, all the things kind of fit together. And so we decided to go to Japan first. And I was very nervous. I did not know, right? I didn't know whether it would work or not. And I remember the first day we opened our store, our first store in Tokyo. It was in the Ginza district, a big shopping district, famous.
That's like the Fifth Avenue.
Like Fifth Avenue, right? And we opened our store, and I showed up at early in the morning, and I waited. No customers showed up. Okay. And here was Howard Schultz, chairman of the board and CEO, next to me, and I was starting to get nervous. Finally, about 9 o'clock, 2 customers came. And I ran into the store, and I put out my hand. I congratulated them. And lo and behold, where were they from? Seattle. So, but by 11 o'clock that morning, there was a line around the block, and the rest is history. We have over 1,000 stores now in Japan. And, you know, we can celebrate that. I think that we did build a bridge.
I think it's great. And I think it's not too many companies have done that, like have this really good formula that works in everywhere. You don't have to change it.
Yeah, well, we changed things. You can take what you know, and that's all we could do. But at the end of the day, I don't believe in global business. Look, all business is local. I think when you succumb to this idea about a global or international business, you're depersonalizing it. Business is personal. It's about human beings. It isn't, and I think all too often business leaders forget that. You know, they think they take their product, they're going to go sell it in another country, and that's who we are. But I think that you have to make lots of room for localization, and we did. We had lots of beverages that were specific to countries that we were in, lots of food products that were specific to countries that we're in. Did we bring what we knew? Yes. But then you make it local.
So you bring the essence, but you adapt.
Bring the essence. And the most important essence, I think, to bring is who you are as a human being.
Now that they say time is changing and things are changing, and especially the generations is changing.
Sure.
They talk about this millennial generation.
Right.
How would you recommend for companies to adapt to this generation?
You know, number one word is listen. You know, you don't need to know the answers. Ask your people. If you're trying to figure out what a 20-year-old thinks, ask a 20-year-old. A lot of them, right? If you want to know what a 30-year-old thinks, ask them. You know, we think we're so different. We're not so different, right? An 18 or 20-year-old wants to be treated with respect and dignity. An 18 or 20-year-old wants to eventually have fulfilling work, right, where they're paid fairly and treated well. That's no different than a 60-year-old. Now, does your generation use different tools than we did? Do you have more access to knowledge and information much more quickly than we did? Yes. Even at your age, right? I mean, the difference between when you first started college and today and the kind of access to information and as quickly as you can get it is different. Well, you can imagine for somebody like me who's 70 years old, you know, it is totally different. I mean, you know, now children get into cars and they look for the button for the window to go up and down. When I grew up, you had to roll the window up and down, right? And somebody told me this story about they had a child that was 4 or 5 years old, and the mother gave the child a magazine, and the child is looking for the buttons to push on the magazine. thinking that it's an iPad, you know. And so, the number one word, if you want to know the answers, ask. And if you ask enough, then the pieces will start fitting together.
I was hearing a lot of your lectures, and you said something that made me laugh a lot. That's that you are a capitalist pig.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing, because people think that that's a bad thing, but it's not.
No.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, I do it in jest, because you always hear, well, they're capitalist pigs. It means that they're greedy, they don't care about people, and I don't think that's true. Are there people that are greedy? Yes, there are. Will there always be people that are greedy and want more for themselves? Yes, there will be. That's a part of humanity. But I think that you can be a capitalist and care about people. Now, I love the game of business. It is interesting, it's fun, it's exciting. But I always felt that you could do it with other people, not on the backs of other people. You could do it by treating people with respect and dignity, by paying people well. And so I use it in jest, you know, because when I talk about it, I want to dispel this idea that somehow capitalism is bad. Capitalism has been a change agent for centuries now. It's gone through lots of changes, and it's going to go through more changes. There's an organization in the United States called Conscious Capitalism. And basically what it's saying is, look, you can't just be about maximization of profits. You have to be about optimization of profits. And what that means is that the goal isn't to get as much as you can get. The goal is to get adequate returns on your investment. To make a profit, you need to do it, but to share that wealth as best as you can, and also to recognize that businesses have a responsibility in their greater community. If the communities aren't healthy, the greater community is not healthy economically, businesses aren't going to be healthy. We are linked. We are linked, and there's no way to get around that. And, you know, the great example is here in Peru, right? In the 70s and the 80s, and the difficulties and the struggles that were going on in Peru, right? It's hard to share when there's nothing to share. But if you can grow your economy and do it fairly and add new jobs and take care of the environment and do it in a right way, then there's more to share. Does that mean there are some people that are going to get wealthy because of it? Yes. But with their wealth, they have increased responsibility. And so being a capitalist pig, right, can be a good thing.
I think so.
Okay.
Congratulations. It has been really, really good to know you.
Good to know you too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.